Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Creating Success with Nidal Rasheed. And today's special guest is Xenia Ioannou from Alexa Real Estate. Now, I've known Xenia for quite some time now. In fact, when I got started in my career, I used to go to seminars that Xenia used to present at. This was some 10 years ago. Now, Xenia's been in the industry for well over 14 years. She's been across thousands of transactions, dealt with thousands of clients, and she's definitely seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. And today I really wanted to dig deep, pick her brains, try and extract as many golden nuggets as possible, and share as many wisdom bits with you guys as possible. So without further ado, welcome on the call. Thank you for joining us, Xenia.
Thanks for having me, Nidal. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome to have you and awesome to chat. Hey, Xenia, I always like to find out a little bit more about our guests and introduce our listeners, our viewers, and our clients to people who are operating at the highest level in the industry, those who are across real estate transactions, particularly property investors who are succeeding. And I know you've had quite some success, so I really wanted to delve deep in that. But before we do, can you tell us your story? Tell us, how did you start? Where did you come from? How did you end up doing what you're doing?
Okay. So I actually started off as a medical research scientist. So I got my PhD at Flinders Uni and then went over to Canada to work on vaccine design as a postdoctoral research fellow. At that time, I actually got pregnant, had a baby.
Wow.
And there was this affirmative action thing happening. So in that industry at that time, out of about 200 scientists, I think there was only 2 females in there. All of the research assistants were female, well, a lot of them were, but up in the higher levels where, you have the research scientists that were doing the experiments and the clinical trials, I think there was basically 2 to 3 females. So when I actually took myself out, to go on maternity leave, that really significantly reduced the number of females in there. So they had this affirmative action thing happening at the time where they offered the female scientists, and probably the male scientists now too, their salary for a year to come back, to hold their position and come back, which means that put me at home getting my salary, and there was a condition not to work for anybody else. That was actually quite good for the first 2 weeks, and then I got really bored. I went from running 30 clinical trials and a whole team of research assistants and publications to at home with a baby. So I was going a bit crazy. So I started reading. And at that time, I started investing when I was about 19 years old anyway. And it's just something that I did, just being a European background. Your dad just says, go out and sign a contract, so you do. So I already had some investment properties. I actually had about 4 investment properties before I got married.
Awesome.
So we had that in the background. We had commercial properties. We had all of these things. And I picked up a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Nice.
From Robert Kiyosaki.
Yep.
And he was basically talking about creating income full-time in property investing. So, I started reading one book and it led to 100 books. And then one day my husband actually came home and I said, I'm never going to go back to work. And he was shocked because I was such a workaholic. He was shocked and I said, no, never, I am never going to go back to research. And then I explained to him that we can actually do this. We've already got the properties. What we need to do is do some developments, do some subdividing. I had it all worked out. We're going to buy more properties, and it started from there. So that was the first and only time I've ever worked, and that was in Canada. So I have never had a job in Australia ever.
Wow. Awesome. So from medical research to property, just a normal transition.
As you do.
Yeah. Look, I got to touch on that point. I read Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad when I was 14 years old as well. And that was my first business.
Yeah.
And that was the path that set me on my journey as well. And so many times when people are asking me for, what's a top pick or top read, especially if they've never been exposed to the world of investing and property and, passive income, that's the first book I always recommend. So for our viewers out there, if you haven't read Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, make sure you jump onto that as soon as possible. So
Yeah, absolutely. It's a whole new world out there. Yeah.
definitely, definitely. So I understand at the moment you obviously work with hundreds and possibly thousands of people on a regular basis, helping them manage their investment properties as well. Can you tell us a little bit more about your
Sure.
current business and what Alexa Real Estate does, and what value you provide for your investors?
Yeah, sure. So I went down a path from property investing to entrepreneurship. So Alexa Real Estate is actually our second real estate company. So the first real estate company that we ran it the traditional way. So you have a property manager looking after 50 to 100 properties and doing everything from, leasing properties to chasing arrears to doing maintenance to, all of the rigmarole. You would know that, Nidal. You've got
Yep.
your own property management agency and all that's involved. What we actually found in the 5 years that I was running that first company is that the property management burnout rate was really high. So it would take about 3 months before a property manager is burnt out. And by burnt out, I mean they either go brain dead, where they don't care anymore, they go into apathy, or they just quit.
Yep.
So that was a challenge for me in how to actually deal with that situation, because one of the biggest complaints in the industry is, I don't know who my property manager is.
Mm-hmm.
You get used to one person and then they go, and then you don't know who's managing your property. So when we started Alexa, that was the second agency. So I took half the rent roll from the first one. The business partner I had at the time took the other half, and she did whatever she wanted with it. But with my half, I kind of wrapped Alexa Real Estate around it, and that gave me the opportunity to revisit anything that wasn't working. And I really wanted to take care of that point of property manager burnout. So what we're doing at the moment is a team approach. So we don't have a property manager. We have specialist property managers. So there's 6 property managers managing one property, basically.
Nice.
So we've got somebody that just does rent arrears. She's got a legal background. She does all the legal compliance stuff. We've got somebody who's just on maintenance, and that's a really important point, because the number one reason why a tenant doesn't renew their lease is maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
They've already told the property manager 300 times that a tap is leaking. It hasn't been fixed, and they've had enough, and they just go. And these are invisible losses that happen within the balance sheet of an investor. So taking care of all of those little things, having a property open after hours by a leasing consultant that doesn't have to be in the office at 9 o'clock. They can start at 11 o'clock and work till 6:30. Having open inspections on the weekends, because leasing consultants can do that. Just specialist property management with each person taking care of their own little niche area prevents the property manager from getting burnt out, and also, obviously provides better service too.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And most people don't realize the amount of work that goes into managing properties and the inherent risk that comes with it as well. And I often get asked the question, why should I use a property manager as opposed to doing it myself? So, I mean, what's your response to that?
I think there are some people that should do it themselves. Absolutely. It depends if they've got, very strict criteria. But it's so transient, Nidal. Like, the laws change all the time. I mean, there's something like there's 31 proposed changes that have just come through to Canberra and Melbourne that are making their way down to Adelaide. The power of is taken away from owners all the time. Laws change. So if you're not on top of that legislation and the way that laws are changing, and you get caught up on the wrong side of the act, you're done. I mean, SACAT is very trigger happy in issuing $50,000 fines for people for doing it wrong. Insurance companies won't pay up if you're not showing that you're mitigating losses. If you're not showing that breach notices are done on time, and if the property manager's done something wrong. So you need somebody on top of it.
Yep, absolutely.
So it takes a lot of the risk out.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's such a litigated space as well, and you're talking with people's livelihoods. This is where people live, so it's got to be taken seriously. And like you said, if you're not on top of maintenance and things that deem a property to be safe and livable, then yeah, that's a big no. And there's, it's not just a slap on the wrist anymore. There's
yeah. And there's the whole legal compliance side of things, making sure everything's done right. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Look, I find that a lot of people who want to invest in property tend to they overlook the importance of having a good property manager, because that can sometimes determine what kind of experience they have, and the experience they have will determine whether they do further investing or not. And I know people who stopped investing because they had a bad experience with a tenant. And I often say to them, look, don't let the bugs on the windscreen get in the way of the, of the road ahead, because
of the road,
bad tenants are going to be out there. You just have to know how to filter them out and how to deal with them, and how to work with it. But there's also good tenants out there as well. So having the right way to take them on and get them through will change that experience and then entice you to want to do more down the track. And it's just often a little piece that comes up. But I mean, on that, you've obviously been doing this for quite some time. You've dealt with thousands of people. You've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I guess the purpose of this interview is also to provide some value for people who are watching this, thinking about investing in property or thinking about even getting into the industry as well. What advice would you have for someone who's thinking about starting on their property investment journey?
Okay, I would think that the best time to start is now. People wait for the right time, the right opportunity. No one's going to come around and say, "Hey, Nidal, this is your deal. You need to buy this deal now." So start looking now and start doing what you can to get into the market. I have seen people wait 30 years for the right opportunity and it not come. And also, get your relationship with money right. Money is not precious and it's not scarce. Money is just it's nothing. It is something to make our life comfortable. And there's so much emotion, around money. People try to hoard it. And the thing is that if you think that money is scarce, you're not going to risk it enough to get into property.
Yep, absolutely.
Or do anything, because you're always going to be scared of losing money. And you could lose money. So what? It's just money. Yeah.
Look, it's all about getting that, like you said, the relationship right, and understanding the distinction between good debt and bad debt, and getting comfortable with good debt as well. Because most people spend their whole life trying to avoid debts, but if you don't use it to your advantage, then you're always going to be, scared of progressing or taking that risk, because usually the reward is in direct proportion to the risk that you take anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And it will take you a long time to save up, 384,000, which is a median price.
Pretty much.
In South Australia at the moment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So on that note as well, there's obviously a lot of good advice you can give people on what to do. What advice would you give someone on what pitfalls to avoid? Because obviously there's a lot of mistakes they can be making. What are your top warnings for people wanting to get in?
Okay, I would say if you look for a property where you can add value, you can actually create equity in that property. So my son, who's actually 17, is looking for a property at the moment. We're driving around Adelaide and I'm showing him good properties and bad properties. And sometimes, the beautiful townhouses that you see that are, absolutely perfect have had all of the profit taken out of them by the developer. So if you find something that with a bit of a backyard that you can subdivide, or with something that you can do to the property, a renovation, then you can actually build equity in, rather than buying something that's top end, where it's going to take a lot longer to get your money back out of that deal.
Yep. Absolutely.
That
obviously,
makes sense. Yeah.
100%. Looking at ways to manufacture equity through a property is going to speed up the process, particularly if you've got the ability to invest more than just money, because I find that there's two types of investors. You've got passive investors who just want their money to work for them. Just buy me something that's low touch, low stress, low management, and I just want money to come in. And that requires a certain strategy. And then there are those who go, no, I want to do a project or something I can add value to, or renovation or subdivide or manufacture equity through. And that requires what we call sweat equity. And we call
yes, exactly.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
and one of the best ways to get started is, yes, absolutely, try and invest more than just your money, but your sweat equity as well.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
awesome. So
Yeah.
on that as well, like obviously you've seen the, you know, the successful investors as opposed to the unsuccessful ones. What do you see are the top traits and the common patterns amongst those who are successful and or those who are winning in the investment game?
Okay, I would say mindset, mindset. It is, the habits of the individual. They've got very good money habits. They're not emotionally attached to money. They're not emotionally attached to properties. They're not emotionally attached to the deal. They spend a lot of their spare time educating themselves,
Hmm.
rather than entertaining themselves. We've all got the same 24 hours. It's how we use it. And look, I'm doing this little project right now, Nidal, you might be interested in. I'm actually trying to switch every single minute that I have spent on social media, on learning. So I'm doing audiobooks,
Awesome.
and I've started on the 30th of December, and I've done about 110 audiobooks already.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's in less than 60 days. There's 110 audiobooks. So, and I run a busy company with 14 staff members, 3 children. This is just wasted time. So I'm making use of all wasted time. You know how you get up in the morning and, you pick up your phone, you see who's texted you overnight or something,
Mhm.
those little things.
Yeah.
You don't need all of that,
No.
checking your emails. So if you're not going to do anything about it right there and then, you don't
Mhm.
really need to do all of that. So I've actually switched the habit where I'm actually putting on an audio. So instead of reaching out for my phone, I actually reach out for my phone, put on an audio. I've got speakers in the shower, so while I'm getting ready, I probably do about an hour before I leave,
Nice.
which would have been an hour of wasted time, driving around. So I have done hundreds of hours already.
That's awesome.
Just in that time. So switching those habits
Mhm.
to something that's going to make you more successful is,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Look, you hit the nail right on the head because it does come to mindset. You know, 80% of our success is attributed to the mindset and the psychology that we have, which we call the inner game.
Yeah,
And only
yeah,
20% is
yeah.
really attributed to the strategies and the know-how, because the know-how is available
Mm-hmm.
to everyone. Anyone can jump on Google these days, look at how to make money, how to, create a passive income, how to invest in property. But only a small percentage of people ever pursue that and do that
Yeah.
because, like you said, not everyone uses their time effectively. I mean, if you just check your screen time on how much time you're spending on social
Oh,
media and
yeah.
wasted
Yeah.
time, it's actually quite scary, you know?
Yeah,
So
I know.
it's so I'm actually I'll take that up actually because I'm a big fan of obviously getting the most out of using my time effectively and being able to continuously improve and learn and do all that. So
Uh,
one of my
and you don't think of that. It's
mm,
10 minutes here and 10 minutes there. And so
yeah,
what if I just check on Facebook and see what people have said? All of that really adds up, and it's really adding up.
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Another thing that you just mentioned there is don't be emotionally attached. And I always say to our investors is that the more emotions you invest, the less money you make. So taking
Yes.
it back
Yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
approaching investing money, everything on a logical level, understand that it's a numbers game. If the numbers stack up and they all add up and there's money in the deal, then that deal will sell itself. That deal will, will have its own wins basically. But once you start getting emotional about investing in the property specifically and thinking about, this property is going to be my home or I might live in it or whatever it is, then you start to deter away from the investment benefits, I find, you know.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's always emotion up, intelligence down. That's the way it
Mm,
goes. And on that, Nadal, I mean, also, what happens if you've lost money? Like,
mm,
can people fail forward?
yeah.
So
Yeah.
you say you've lost money in a property. The numbers didn't quite stack up in a development. You just lost some money. Do you just give up and make it that? And it all depends on the language that you're saying to yourself. So does
Mm,
that mean that you're hopeless? I'm a bad person. I can't do the numbers right, or the market is not wrong, or is it just this deal did not work out? Let's move on.
mm,
You know,
100%.
it's
Like,
it's how you approach that.
Absolutely. Like you said, it comes back down to mindset, and mindset is such a broad space that it can take you, weeks, months, years just to get your head around, just the mindset principles you need before you even start looking at investment opportunities or properties or anything for that matter. So,
Yeah.
I guess, from your own personal experience, you've obviously done some development, you've done your own investing, you've been an entrepreneur, you've done a lot over the years. What are some golden nuggets that you can share that's changed your career specifically and that have enabled you to achieve your own success in your own investment journey?
Yeah, sure. Look, I always reach out to be a better person from
Mhm.
one year to the next. If you don't do that, you could be 70 years old, you've had one year repeated 70 times, and you're just an adult child. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of them out there. Uh, so try to be a better person. So for me personally, I actually use my business. So as my business grows, there are challenges every single day. There's challenges in investing. Kids give you challenges, businesses give you challenges, property investing gives you challenges. You can use those challenges to actually grow. So sometimes if you come across a roadblock, you need to be a bigger person to be able to handle that challenge. So how do you become a bigger person? So there are a lot of ways to become a bigger person and to grow sort of spiritually and mentally. Business is just one of those vehicles, and because of the challenges that are in the businesses, you've got the people, you've got business growth, you've got financials, you've got all of these hurdles to overcome, and
Yep.
it's up to you to grow yourself to a point where you can actually handle that challenge. So
Absolutely.
that is something that I use on a day-to-day basis to become a better person, so I can handle the challenges that are coming my way.
Yep. Absolutely. I think the
Yeah.
Japanese call it the Kaizen principle. Tony Robbins.
Okay.
Yeah, so they've got a way of life, which basically means that it's a constant and never-ending improvement. So they believe that if you wanted to improve in something, you don't need to make 100% change overnight. It's just about making those 1% changes every single day. And over the course
Yeah.
of a year, it's not going to add up to 365% because 1% on top of 1% on top of 1%, you get the compounded effect. And over time, the course of your life changes dramatically. It's also
Yeah.
like if you think about when you hit a golf ball, just a 1 degree change in the way you hit the ball can become a difference of hundreds of meters apart.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
So same thing
Yeah,
happens in
yeah.
life, and you hit it right on the head because it is about constant and never-ending improvement. When we think we know it all, unfortunately, that's when we start to go the other way. So now, look, like I said, I've obviously admired the work you've done over the years. I know you've done some work in the personal development space in the past as well. Do you mind touching on that a little bit as well?
Yeah, look, I really love the human race. I think we're evolving.
Oh,
I think we're evolving to a higher consciousness. And I love studying stuff like that. I love studying all of the world's religions,
mhm.
because I think they all kind of say the same thing. Be a bigger person, connect with
Be
the
a good
source
person and live
God,
your truth.
whatever you want to call it. There are things that are higher than us that we can tap into, that actually drive us and drive our success. We're not alone. We're all connected.
Yep,
And yeah, I just love studying that space, and I'm sure you do as well.
absolutely,
The
absolutely.
Yeah, I
I
think
think
anyone who has ever been anyone has been a connected person. So you can't
100%.
live in isolation. You can't be a golem and be, an unconscious person and be really good at business. Something is going to fall over somewhere.
Yeah, look, I think sometimes in life we need that, whether we call it, I don't know, direction or whether it's our destiny, but there's definitely push
Hmm.
and pull factors happening to us, things that are pulling us towards and things that are pushing us away. And I think, yeah, having that spiritual outlook on life definitely gives you a different layer and a different
Hmm.
angle to view life from. So I've definitely, been very conscious of that and tried to develop it as much as possible over the years. And I find that when I meet people who are also on that wavelength, the connection is a lot deeper, the understanding is a lot more deeper, and just the relationship has a different quality altogether. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And taking responsibility on everything. I mean, how many people can say, I have created everything in my life, you know, good and bad. So something happens, you know, what just happened? How did I actually cause that to happen? Because we are at cause in life. You know, we are the ones that are creating our life, whether we like to admit it or not. You know, why did I need this illness? Or, you know, it depends how far you want to take it, how much responsibility you want to take. And I find that the more responsibility I take for having created something, the more I can actually grow and work myself out. Because you can't actually work anything out unless you work yourself out first.
100%. 100%. You got to take accountability and understand that everything happens, you know, on time, on purpose, and for a reason. And as cliche as it sounds, it's true, because, you know, when you do take ownership, then things are within somewhat within your control. You're never in full control, but when you are when you play the victim role, that okay, things are happening to me and I'm just the victim here, then that's what will continue happening. When you become the person that takes responsibility and says, okay, what happens to me is my responsibility, then, you know, you start to shape how you perceive things and what they mean to you, and that then determines your actions, which then ultimately determines the end results, you know.
Yeah. And you know what? Taking the victim role doesn't work. If it worked, then it would have actually made a difference. But, you know, having an adult tantrum on social media about something that hasn't worked out for you does not cause that thing to work out. You know, there is a different process behind it that you've got to take to actually cause a change to happen and grow from it.
Definitely. So when we relate it back to property investing, it's obviously take ownership. Know that, look,
take responsibility.
Whenever you do embark on anything, as with any investing, there's obviously inherent risk, and there's the risk is direct proportion to the reward, and understand that, you know, there's as long as you put the right actions in place, then the results will follow, but understand that, you know, sometimes things don't always go your way either. So that's something that we're very adamant on. We always like to make sure that we touch on that and make it very, very clear right from the word go. So look, Xenia, it's obviously, you know, an absolute pleasure to chat, and I can keep doing this all day. But
thank you.
For those who are listening to this and thinking, okay, yeah, I actually really resonate with these people, and I want to sort of pursue a relationship and, you know, business relationship with property investing or that, how can people get in touch with you? So how can they reach out and get in contact and possibly learn more or do some business with you?
Yeah, sure. I'm on Facebook, just under Xenia Ioannou or Alexa Real Estate. Website is alexarealestate.com.au. We have investment seminars running every month. You're speaking at the next one, Nidal.
Yes.
They're called Investor IQ. They're on Meetup, or people can email me at Xenia, that's XENIA, at alexarealestate.com.au.
All right, awesome. And if you send me the link, I'll make sure I post it in the video as well. So whoever's watching that wants to come to the Investor IQ seminars,
sure.
we can post that link in there. And look, as a result of someone watching this video interview and obviously learning a little bit about property and investing and spirituality, what would you advise or encourage people to do as a result of this learning?
Learn more. You know, if somebody is starting right from scratch and knows nothing, I would say go out and learn as much as you can. You know, spend a year learning, because, you know, the best financial advisor you can ever have is yourself. You know, you can always take advice from other people. You can always listen to their viewpoint, and it's all just viewpoints. No one's got the truth. It's all just viewpoints. So, you know, you can take a viewpoint from 10 different people and come up with your own strategy. And that's the best way to actually, you know, go on a journey to investing. And the only way that you can do that is to really educate yourself and know, you know, what is out there, what the different points of views are. You know, you don't have to invalidate people and make them wrong because they're just viewpoints. You know, what they all are, and work out what can work for you.
Absolutely. And you know, there's lots of ways to be right. There's you know, different ways to bake a cake. There's lots of recipes out there.
Yeah,
one that
absolutely.
works for you and run with that. So now look, That's great advice, and I really encourage people to pursue that. Obviously, never stop, the process of learning, and look into Kaizen, look into Kanai, as Tony Robbins calls it, constant and never-ending improvement. And if there's anything I can take away from this interview as well, Xenia, is that it's all about constant and never-ending improvement and constant and never-ending learning. In your case,
Oh,
that,
absolutely. Yeah.
that seems
Yeah.
to be the theme for today's interview. But look, once again, thank you so much for spending time with us and, sharing some golden nuggets and sharing some wisdom. As always, it's always a pleasure to work with you, and I highly recommend Xenia to anyone who's looking at a property manager or someone who's looking at just connecting with high-level business people in Adelaide. So on that, once again, thank you to all of our viewers and all of our listeners out there. I hope you guys got some great value out of today. Was there anything that you wanted to wrap up with, Xenia, before we?
No, I just thank you very much for having me, and I look forward to having you on our stage too, Nidal.
Likewise. I can't.
Thank you.
Looking forward to it. All right. Thanks again, everyone. I hope you're having a great day, and we will see you on the next video. Take care and all the best.